Welcome to the beautiful campus of Howard University and the 2026 Allen Sachs National Symposium, Advancing Integrity in College Sport. My name is Julie Summer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Drake Group Education Fund. On behalf of the Board of Directors, thank you all for coming today. To all of you who made possible the attendance of our aspiring graduate and undergraduate students in the room, with your generous gifts, you are listed on our video screens and in our program. These young people are our next generation of sports lawyers, sports management professionals, journalists, and we really thank you for all of your generosity. There's a QR code on the back of the program to the lower left. The QR code will connect you to the DrakeGroupEducationFund.org Symposium resource page, where you can access panelist biographies and other information mentioned in the program. All materials located on our website will continue to be available after the program, including a full recording of today's proceedings. The theme of this year's conference is From Chaos to Consensus, defining new models for college sports. We're focusing on how the landscape of college sports continues to evolve, examining the shifting dynamics between education, athlete compensation, and the commercialization of college athletics, and how these developments impact college athletes' academic success, health, and well-being. You will hear from academic experts, journalists, and education and government leaders who are questioning how these stressors are now being experienced by college athletes. All of our moderators and speakers are donating their time to be here and sharing their expertise. We are so grateful for their participation in the 2026 Sachs Symposium. The Drake Group Education Fund is proud to partner with Howard University, an enduring beacon of HBCU excellence, and the Bison Athletic Department are gracious hosts for this 5th annual Sachs Symposium. Together, they provide an ideal setting for this important national conversation, college athletics at a crossroads. Introducing the leader of Bison Athletics, sponsoring 21 teams and 500 athletes, the largest program among all HBCUs, the Bisons have flourished under the leadership of Carrie Davis since 2015. Howard athletes have excelled on the playing fields, achieved high graduation rates and GPAs in the classroom, and engaged in numerous community partnerships. We've asked one of the most respected and successful athletic administrators in the country to make opening remarks. Please welcome Bison Director of Athletics, Carrie Davis.
Thank you, Julie. So as Julie said, my name is Carrie Davis. I'm the Vice President of Athletics here at Howard University. I want to thank you for this opportunity to address the Drake Group. It is a privilege to stand before a room of leaders, scholars, practitioners, and advocates who care deeply about the integrity, purpose, and future of intercollegiate athletics. On behalf of Howard University, I bring you greetings from our student athletes, coaches, and campus community, individuals who live every day at the intersection of education, competition, and integrity. We gather at a moment of profound transformation for college athletics. You know, I was writing these remarks. I was thinking about where we were at Howard Athletics as a university. We're already in the year where we've won 7 conference championships. We are still on a high after our women's golf team won the Northeast Conference Championship and only their 4th year of existence. And the men, in their 5th year of existence, are already back-to-back champions and will be going for their 3rd championship this coming weekend. Only our swim team. So think about this. There's only one HBCU swim team in the entire country. And yet that swim team who participates in the Northeast Conference, the PWI Conference, won both the women and men's championships a couple of weeks ago. It was the first championship ever for our women, and it was back-to-back champions for our men. And of course, we are still high off the basketball season. For the first time in our history, both our men and women won the regular season championship and the conference championship, right, both qualifying for the NCAA. Now, I will say this. We did our part in keeping the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry alive. Look, our women played Ohio State in Columbus. Tough matchup. We'll get them next time. And our men, after we won in Dayton in the play-in game, which was the first time the Howard men's basketball team had won an NCAA game, our men, as we were getting on the bus in Ohio to travel to play Michigan, fans were lined up at our bus, and I thought they were just lined up to say congratulations. Instead, they were lined up to say, beat Michigan. Now, they didn't use that verb. They used a different verb, right? But the sentiment was still the same. But as we revel in these moments, one of the things I think about as an administrator is, how can we continue this success? How can we thrive in the new landscape of the athletic program? The landscape we once understood has shifted rapidly, in many ways irreversibly. The introduction of an evolution of name, image, and likeness has fundamentally altered the economic model of college sports. The transfer portal has redefined mobility, autonomy, and roster management. At the same time, we are navigating an increasingly complex environment shaped by legal challenges, government engagement, and questions about the very structure of the NCAA. These changes are not theoretical. They are lived realities for our student athletes, our administrators, our institutions, and our communities. For student athletes, this is a time of expanded opportunity, but also increased uncertainty. There are over 1,000 young people still in the women's portal in basketball. There are over 1,200 people still in the men's portal in basketball. Will all of those students have a place to land by this fall? There's a lot of uncertainty on the student-athlete side. For administrators and coaches, it is a time that demands adaptability, creativity, and an unwavering commitment to mission. And for institutions like ours, institutions with a proud history and a clear sense of purpose, it is a moment that calls for both vigilance and vision. That is why gatherings like this matter. The Drake Group has long served as a critical voice in college athletics, one that challenges us to think more deeply, act more responsibly, and center education in all that we do. This convening is not simply about identifying solutions, because candidly, there are no easy solutions to the complexities we face today. But what we can do, and what you are doing, is just as important. We can engage in an honest, informed, and sometimes difficult conversation. We can bring together diverse perspectives, legal experts, faculty leaders, administrators, and advocates who may not always agree, but who share a commitment to getting this right. We can ask better questions. We can challenge assumptions, and we can ensure that even amid change, the values that define higher education are not lost. In many ways, progress begins not with consensus. Not with Charlie Baker and the NCAA, not with the Power Four conferences alone, not institutions alone. It rests with all of us collectively. That is the power of a gathering like this. In a space where ideas can be tested, where perspectives can be broadened, and where even in the absence of immediate answers, we can move closer to a shared understanding. At Howard University, we remain committed to an approach that centers on student-athlete development in the classroom, in competition, and in life beyond the sport. We believe that opportunity and education are not mutually exclusive, and that even in a changing landscape, our responsibility to our students remain constant. So I want to thank the Drake Group for accepting our hosting invitation, right? And we look forward to a gathering not just of thought, not just of questions, but let's also look at the realities of what we face and do our part in being a part of the change that we want to see. So thank you.
I'm now honored to introduce the moderator and panelists of this morning's first session addressing the athlete's verdict post-House settlement. I'd like to introduce Leigh Friestedt. Do you want to start coming up? Leigh is the founder of Equity 9, a boutique law firm that specializes in Title IX women's sports and education. A former college athlete at Brown University, Leigh is uniquely qualified to advise universities, college athletes, and coaches on legal matters, Title IX and gender equity and NIL matters. We have several athletes on the agenda this morning. So we're going to have 30 minutes of 4 of them. Okay, okay. Okay, so, go ahead. Come on. So, stop Morgan. Or actually, we can put them all. Okay. Go ahead and find your name tag. I'll tell you a little bit about these athletes. Our first panelist is Cam Gillus, a standout basketball player here at Howard University. A transfer from Lehigh University, Gillus returned to his DC roots for the 2025-26 season. Beyond the court, Gillus is recognized for his leadership and commitment to the cultural and educational mission of HBCUs. We also have Gracelyn Laudermilch, second right here, a freshman Division I track and field cross-country athlete from Rome, Pennsylvania. Since January of 2025, she's been a formal objector to the House versus NCAA settlement agreement and is currently a pro se appellant, which means representing herself, before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Thank you, Gracelyn. We also have Julian Mutume, who is number 3 on the panel here. He's a former defensive end for the Naval Academy. Although a projected starter for 2026, he recently departed the Naval program. Because the transfer portal has closed, his next destination remains uncertain. As a proven FBS talent, he is expected to be a highly coveted addition to another defensive unit. We also have Chitana Nowecki, number 4 on the table here. She is a college athlete on the Georgetown University women's basketball team. Prior to Georgetown, she played at Princeton University, appearing in 88 games, including standout Ivy League performances. She earned her undergraduate degree in psychology from Princeton and obtained a Master of Science in Health from Georgetown, where she is currently pursuing a second master's in sports management. Despite a season-ending injury within the first 5 seconds of her first game, she remains a leader and advocate for athlete mental health and NCAA reform. We also have Sophia Ross, number 5 down the line here. Sophia is a freshman sport and entertainment management major at the University of South Carolina. In anticipation of the House versus NCAA settlement, she was cut from the team in the fall of 2024 at Youngstown State University, losing not only her roster spot, but her scholarship as well. We also have Sydney Seabrooks, a standout freshman gymnast at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where she recently earned the 2026 Second Team All-America honors on floor exercise. Congratulations, Sydney. We also have Morgan Smith, a Division I college athlete at the University of Georgia, studying business and sports management. She began her collegiate career at Georgetown University, earning Big East Freshman of the Year honors before transferring to compete at a higher level. Here you go, Leigh.
Good morning, everybody. First, I'd like to thank all the athletes here, and I hope everybody here can support them because it takes a lot of courage for a student athlete to stand up and to share with people what may be really going on behind the scenes. And I think as we look at the House settlement and all of the legal aspects of it that have transpired over the last year, the landscape of college sports has absolutely changed in a way that it will never go back. And the athletes are really the ones experiencing the repercussions of this, and yet I think their voices have unfortunately been minimized. And so I really appreciate everybody here today. I know everybody has different stories. We have 7 athletes in an hour to try to share with them their stories, so I'll do my best to help moderate that. But is anybody here adamant about going first? Philip? Okay. Cam, you're the hometown? Okay. We have our hometown hero here, Cam, and I know that you've had a wonderful basketball season, so congratulations. And you also transferred in from you transferred in from Lehigh. Maybe talk to us a little bit about your decision to transfer and what you're seeing over the last year.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Yeah, my story is just kind of pretty unique, I'd say. In terms of the transfer portal, I saw it as an advantage for me. Lehigh was a place that, kind of got my career started. I was able to, have a lot of success there. I was able to play a lot of meaningful minutes and start a lot of games there, but I felt like I wanted something more out of not just my basketball experience, but my college experience as well. And that's kind of what led me to, want to come to Howard, come to such a unique place where you can thrive, both on and off the court. And that's kind of the things I was looking for as I was trying to, grow in my basketball and college experience.
And over the last year, Cam, have you seen any differences, like in terms of the team dynamics, or I don't know if you guys are having revenue sharing here, or if you have friends at other schools that are recipients of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like today in college basketball, you really can't, if you don't, adapt, you kind of, fall behind. So in terms of like revenue sharing, we do things like that at Howard, and then obviously in the other schools do it as well on a much larger scale. And I think it's something that, is very tricky in today's time where, many people kind of just, see all the money that's being thrown at them and kind of just run towards it. And, as someone who, obviously, athletes should be, compensated for what they do. But it often gets tricky, just kind of in today's landscape with the transfer portal, revenue sharing, it becomes very tricky, how to navigate all that.
Absolutely. And do you see some of your friends, maybe even at other schools, you feel like inclined to transfer because they have money getting thrown to them, and the concept of this 4-year trajectory of going to one school seems to be really falling apart very quickly?
Yeah, definitely. I have many friends that, I played high school with, grew up with, even previously played at Lehigh with, who transferred, got lots of money to play at schools. And, obviously I'm, very excited and happy for them. And when I talk to them, I kind of just tell them, like, take it for what it's worth, kind of be smart about it and just try to help them, give my advice on helping them navigating that.
Sure. And in terms of their academic trajectory, I mean, are people having difficulties, transferring schools and then staying in the same major?
Yeah, definitely. Even some of the players I previously played with at Lehigh had trouble, transferring out, getting accepted into schools because, some of the credits wouldn't transfer or, just things like that. So it kind of definitely becomes something that's hard to navigate, especially, as you're trying to graduate within a 4-year span. If you obviously play all your 4 years, it's definitely something that's challenging that I've seen.
And as a compensated student athlete, do you have a view in terms of whether you'd like to be deemed to be an employee or, there's a lot of legal ramifications of that, but.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, in terms of, how it's being treated now, I think that, in terms of what the work we do, and, as we're being compensated for it, it becomes like very tricky in terms of like, legal ramifications. But I think that, obviously I think that student athletes do deserve to be compensated, do deserve to be paid. I just think it has to be some, type of workarounds, and obviously it's a, tough space that we're dealing with today, but there kind of has to start to develop some model of whether it's multi-year deals, something of that nature, because now we're seeing even more, transferring movement and change, than in professional leagues. So I think it becomes tricky from year to year, but as an athlete, I do, the old model definitely certainly isn't the way to go.
Sure. And as you look at the landscape right now, if you had like a magic wand and you could do something to maybe improve it, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that kind of how I mentioned before, maybe it's like they're, when you, sign to a school or decide to transfer to a school, there has to be some kind of like multi-year deal or deal worked out around that to whether, if you transfer, you may not get all the money that you were promised, or instead of just being year-to-year thing, it's kind of, maybe 2 years at a time, something along that model to where it's not just, it's kind of year in, year out thing.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to move now to Gracelyn. For those of you who don't know Gracelyn, she is a pro se objector of the House settlement, and pro se means that she is not represented by an attorney. So what Gracelyn has done is really extraordinarily courageous, and Gracelyn actually is really, as she'll tell you, focused on the roster limits, but represents really all student athletes' voices right now. So if you're a student athlete out there and you feel like the House settlement or the trajectory of college sports is not aligned, Gracelyn is one of the few individuals that we think has standing to appeal. She objected to the injunctive relief first in April and then again in September, and she has appeared before Judge Wilkin twice. She has appeared against the NCAA's top attorney and class counsel. So the level that Gracelyn is performing at, she was 17 when she first objected to this, is really quite remarkable, and I personally want to thank Gracelyn for her courageous effort and wish her well.
Yeah, thank you to the Drake Group for having us. I think any time that the athlete's voice is heard is always a good day, in my opinion. So I'm, so blessed to be here. Thank you, Leigh.
Yep. So Gracelyn has a really interesting story. Unfortunately, it's a very common story, which is you had been recruited, you had a dream school, you thought you were going there. Maybe talk to us about the day you went to Call Liberty and say, hey, this is the school I want to go to.
Yeah. So I was recruited by Liberty. That's all I ever wanted. That's the only place I ever wanted to go. I went on my visit in August. My parents made me look around. They're like, you're not going on one visit and committing. So I looked around, but I knew that it was Liberty. So I made the call to commit in October. It was 4 p.m., I think. And I kind of heard a little bit about the House settlement, but I didn't really think it was gonna, I didn't really know the ramifications. And the coach was like, hey, I can't let you commit because I don't know how many roster spots I have in the fall. So I went from having a roster spot to not having a roster spot, and she was like, I don't know when I'm going to know. I don't know how many girls I'm going to have on the team next year. There are currently 32 girls on the Liberty roster when I was recruited, and that was a really big draw for me because I was like, wow, I have 32 best friends. That's going to be so much fun. So then my roster spot was rescinded, didn't really know what to do. I was sent a podcast listened to the podcast. It was actually a coach that used to be at Liberty, listened to the podcast, and it said to write a letter. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a letter. My lunch table approved it, my English teacher edited it, I sent it to the court, and at the end of it, I was told, like, put if you're willing to speak in court in April. So I was like, and I'm willing to object in April, and I didn't know what that meant. So March 17th comes. Apparently, it was released on March 3rd or 4th or something that, like, the objectors, I didn't know. Like, I had kind of stopped following, was just, like, kind of sad that I wasn't committing, that I wasn't doing anything like that. Get an email, thought it was spam. It wasn't spam. I was being called to object in California. So that started a whole slew of events.
And maybe talk to us a little bit about the process in which your teammates had to go through in the fall to make the team, and how the team, despite the fact that not everybody was on it, has actually really supported you individually and continues to support each other.
Yeah. So unfortunately, because of the roster limits, my spot was reinstated in June after I had graduated. But because of the roster limits, we still had to have a time trial. So I think it was 5 or 6 girls competed for 2 spots. And that was like the most heartbreaking thing I've had to witness. I was literally like, all of us were crying as we're watching. We're like cheering for them. It was a 5K. It was so, so hard. And yeah, that was just like, my roster spot's guaranteed for 1 year. I don't know what next year's gonna look like. I may be in that position of having to run the time trial, and that's the reality of college athletics right now. So originally my roster spot was for 4 years, and now it's for 1 year. So that was really hard, and these girls are like the girls that recruited me. They reached out to me, they checked on me, like, they have been incredible. I mean, right now, like, I sent them the link before this. I was like they pray for me. They, like, I'm in their room, like, oh my word, I'm so stressed. Like, they're the ones that support me. They're the ones that get me through this school running. And they've been harmed by this settlement.
And Gracelyn, talk to us a little bit about how stressful this is to object to something, to be 17, now you're 18 years old. But this is overwhelming. I know one of the questions that comes out in court is, well, why haven't more student athletes objected and stand up for it? I think there's 2 components of that. I think there has been an issue in terms of the notification process, but putting that aside, I think Gracelyn, maybe talk to us about the realities of objecting to this type of class action settlement.
So I think that it was meant for lawyers to do. I don't think it was meant for student athletes to do. It's really hard, and the reality is, like, I'm not looking, like, I don't go around like, what can I object to today? Like, that's not what I do. I do it because it's wrong. And so it's hard because I go to classes, I go to practice, I have to wake up early to do doubles. Like, I'm constantly, like, doing something. I mean, these guys can check tests. Like, it's like, your days are so, like, it's like I have a 5-minute increment to do this now, and, like, everything is so scheduled and so regimented. And so, like, to add anything else into that is not practical. Like, it's not practical for me to appeal pro se to the Ninth Circuit. Like, that is not practical. Like, I don't have time for that. So I think that athletes have to have a voice, and we have to make it a system that the athletes do have a voice in, and that it's practical for them. And if we don't do that, then we're like, well, why are more athletes not objecting? Well, they probably got up at 6 a.m. to go to practice, they went to class, then they went to dinner, they probably had to watch film, they probably had to get treatment, spend an hour in the treatment room making sure they're not injured, and then they have to get 8 hours of sleep because that decreases injury risk. So you wonder why we don't object. Well, guess what? We're busy.
Exactly. And then one of the other things that the settlement had implemented is what's called a designated student athlete designation, which was intended to help to mitigate the harm from the roster limits. And the idea was that if you were a DSA, that you would not count towards a roster count. So at the full discretion of a university, they have the ability to designate a student athlete as a DSA, but maybe talk to us, Gracelyn, about what you've seen from the DSAs for yourself and at Liberty.
Yeah, so I'm a DSA. But the thing is you can be a DSA and you still count for Title IX. So if the university wants to be in compliance, you can be on the roster, but you're gonna count toward Title IX but not toward the roster. So it's weird because you count toward the roster, you don't count toward the roster and you do count toward Title IX. So there are people that are being cut based off of being in Title IX compliance. They're DSAs and they don't count toward the roster, but in order to be in Title IX compliance, they are cut. So it's odd that it counts for one and not the other. Like, it needs to be like fluent across the board. And the reality is like, they wouldn't have to cut them if they didn't reduce the other spots on other teams. So it's like, we put the DSA status in, but the DSA status isn't actually doing what it was meant to do, and it's not protecting the student athlete because we don't have fluidity and continuity across the board.
And let me try to translate what Gracelyn just said, is that as part of the House settlement, the NCAA now has roster limits for all teams. And so as a result of that, Title IX layers on top of this because Title IX is supposed to have participation rates that are comparable to the undergraduate enrollment. So when you start to, change the roster limits themselves, some of the universities have had to adjust, understandably, their participation opportunities for other sports. So what Gracelyn experienced at Liberty is a little bit unique, but what she's finding is there's some adjustments going on and it's impacting both men and women. Okay? All right, Gracelyn, we wish you all the best in court, and I look forward to seeing you in court in California soon. Okay. Julian is obviously from the Naval Academy, so he has a little bit of a different perspective for what Division I athletes look like. It's Julian, maybe explain to us a little bit about what the experience is. And to be clear, Julian, and you can explain this to us, but Julian has he's in the process of looking to move to another school right now, right, Julian?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So right now, well, I'm gonna just speak about my experience as a Naval Academy student and being an athlete. So right now, with service academies in general, we don't really deal with the whole NIL or name, image, and likeness sort of deals because we're government workers. Our paychecks come from the government. And so in terms of that, us being active military members, we can't get any outside income or outside endorsements because that wouldn't support the ideals of the military. And so because of that, we didn't really deal with the whole, with the transfer portal and all these things about eligibility and all these things. 'Cause at the academy, you get 4 years to play. And after your 4 years, you graduate and you go into your service. And as an athlete, it's a bit frustrating, because we put in all our time to work and we play all these high-level schools like North Carolina's and the Cincinnatis and the Notre Dames of the world, but we can't benefit from it, And yeah, we get our government monthly paychecks, but that's, we're grateful for it, but compared to what we have to go through as not only military members and as students, but also as athletes, it's frustrating, and you kind of get the sort of deal like, okay, we're military members, but we're also NCAA athletes. But we're NCAA athletes, but because we're NCAA athletes, but we're also military, we can't benefit from being an NCAA athlete. So it's pretty much the definition of a gray area, and it's, it has its deals, its good deals, and then it also has those days where you're kind of thinking, man, like, what else is out there? And that's kind of what I'm in the process of right now. Sadly, I'm no longer at the Naval Academy, dismissed, parted ways, and so now I'm in the process of trying to find that next school that wants me. And since technically it was a military institution, they have their own separate rules when it comes to separating and leaving the school and going to another school. It's not like the average, process when you're transferring. Because I'm also an NCAA athlete, there's a transfer window, and unfortunately that window is closed. And so now I'm in the process of trying to figure out where to go and figure out what my next steps are. And I got people helping me out with doing that in terms of lawsuits and people helping me out legally and financially. So it's a bit of a process, taking it day by day.
So Julian's a good example of somebody, he's missed the transfer portal for football, but you're looking for another opportunity to go play football. And I would say that's now layered with the NCAA just last week has, I'll say, proposed new eligibility rules in terms of the number of years that you would have to, fulfill your 4 years of eligibility. So there's a lot of moving pieces that these athletes are trying to navigate. And I would say that the rules are changing daily. So for somebody like Julian, who, has done what many Naval Academy individuals have done, which is decide after 2 years that they want to pursue something else. It's just extremely complicated for an athlete to navigate this, and it requires a level of sophistication that, quite frankly, even as an attorney, it's hard for me to keep up with what they can and can't do and how it will work. And that, again, is because the rules are changing daily. You know, we're in Washington, D.C., and I think it's notable that we have 2 executive orders that have been released, and, you know, they are titled Saving College Sports. So, you know, there are a lot of changes, and I think it's unprecedented to have seen Washington, you know, a president get involved in college sports. Obviously, the SCORE Act is currently pending legislation with Congress, and so it's just a major intersection between this House settlement and then all of these policies and the NCAA changing rules. And the point is, these student athletes are all caught in the middle of it. Julian, one question for you is in terms of revenue sharing. So it sounds like, you know, explain, so you as a service member are not eligible for the revenue sharing, but I'm sure you have friends maybe that played football at other schools that were getting paid. Any sense in terms of how that experience was for them?
Yeah, so, I mean, I played ball with a lot of very talented players that play at other Division I programs, and just kind of talking to them to see how that works is just, it's a bit toxic, to be honest with you. It's very much like, okay, a lot of it is politics, a lot of it is what does this person bring to the school, and a lot of it is how much money can you bring to the school. And so you kind of get, as a player, you kind of get, your worth is basically valued based on what you can do on the field. And it's frustrating, and it can also bring a lot of toxicness to the team. That's, you know, the point of a team is to be together, be one unit. But when you have all these different individuals being rated on, oh, he's a starter, he's a backup, he's a bench warmer, he doesn't play. So now their value of revenue and income kind of differs, and you're sitting right next to these guys in the locker room talking, working out, busting your behind to, you know, become a better team. And, well, this player is getting paid more because he plays, or this person gets paid less because he plays less, or this person got paid less because he got injured, and so now he's trying to find his way back up the depth chart. And it's like, you're surrounded by these people you call teammates, but it's just constant competition. And, you know, it's kind of hard to build a unity and, like, sort of a team with that sort of, like, toxicness and, like, that cloud hang over your head, like, okay, yeah, this is my teammate, I'm proud of him, but I feel like I should be getting paid what he's getting paid. Or I don't think he should be getting paid as much as he is because of this and that you can't form a winning team like that. And I think that's what Navy specifically, with the success we've had the past 2 years, and sort of the benefits in not having to deal with NIL and all these things, because we're all getting paid the same. You know, we're all on the same boat, literally, and we're all going through the same journey together. And so our values are not different from one another. It's all one value, all one unit. And so you kind of get that distraction away, and it's all focused on winning and being a better team. So.
Yeah, and I think Julian brings up a really important point, which is the money is driving the process. It always has, but right now it really drives the process. And essentially what's happening is, as Julian just described, the athletes are getting valued coming into a system. They're being offered, you know, some sort of deal. And many times my understanding is coaches ask people to be, you know, to keep it to themselves in terms of what their number is, because obviously, you know, when somebody's getting paid $100,000 versus somebody getting paid $1 million, there's, you know, a lot of tension on a team. But I think what's really getting lost here is the value of a 4-year student-athlete experience. I think that all the athletes should get compensated, personally, based on obviously the money that is surrounding all the media agreements, and they have all demonstrated that their brands themselves are individually of value as well. So it's just unfortunate because it is a business model that has been imposed on college sports right now. And I think what gets lost is the value of the individuals that you see up here and on every single team. So Julian, one final question. You know, we talked a little bit about the size of the football team at Navy, and I know one of the changes in men's football and the roster limits we talked about is that it's now 105 for a men's Division I football team. And I think a lot of top Division I football teams used to maybe carry a roster of around 120, 125. A little different, obviously, but even at the Naval Academy, you've seen an impact on that.
Yeah, so in terms of the rosters and all that, so we in the locker room have over 155 lockers. And so with that, it's a lot of players because, you know, being a service academy, we're not really big on, cutting and all that because it's all one unit, the brotherhood, as we like to speak of it. And so in that brotherhood, we value seniority. And so with that, even if you're a senior and you don't really play that much, you being a senior and what you went through your 4 years at the academy puts you in some sort of spot where, okay, I can travel with the team. I might not play, but I can dress. I can come to the hotels. All these things that a player that, you know, works hard and gets put on the depth chart should do as a senior. You get that automatically. And they deserve it. You know, being an academy student it's hard, you know, and, you know, you survive 4 years of that. You should get some sort of, you know, seniority rights, you know, in terms of that deal. But now because of these new roster limitations, a lot of those seniors have been getting cut. You know, and it's hard to see you spend 4 years committing your time to a program, and then now because of these new rules at NCAA, it's sort of, you're not providing, like, you're not bringing anything to the team in terms of playing time and playing wise. We have no reason to keep you, so we'll cut you. And, you know, you got a lot of seniors that are in the last year, you know, they get cut, they're off the team, and now they're just going about doing certain things. And even in terms of the freshmen or the younger players that got hurt early in their career, and they're trying to get back, it's just all based on, does the coach see value in me? And if he doesn't, then even if I was hurt, even if I wasn't playing that much, or I was academically ineligible, but now I'm trying to get back to it, sorry, we have limitations now, so you have to get going. And it's rough, it's hard, and, you know, it's just the way it is now, and so it's it's different, for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Julian. Shaitana, we're going to move on to you. Obviously, you played basketball at Princeton University, which is an Ivy League institution, and so they don't even have athletic scholarships. For those of you who don't know, the Ivy League has not opted into the House settlement, so there is no pay for play. They're not limited by the roster limitations, but obviously you've transferred now to Georgetown, so you have some really good perspectives between what it was like a year ago and what it's like now.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, by the way. So yeah, my story is a little bit different. So I started getting recruited to play basketball in college at the age of 14. So at 14, I'm hearing about, oh my gosh, you can go to school for free, you know, like I can let my parents, you know, take a break and, you know, give them this opportunity to not have to play for college, so to pay for college. So I was super excited with all of that, and then obviously then Princeton came knocking on the door, and my parents, I come from a very Nigerian household, so if anybody knows what that means we were not turning down Princeton. But there's 3 caveats to Princeton. Yes, you have to, you know, pay for school by yourself. There's no athletic scholarships. You have to get into the school on your own, and there's no revenue share. So really, I like to joke that like I really benefited from, you know, not really that much by going to Princeton, which obviously it's a great education, great school. I made it to the NCAA tournament every single year that I was there. So I think that it was a really special experience for me. I think comparing that to now, obviously, so my freshman year was COVID, so I got another year of eligibility from that. And that is when last year I decided to go into the portal as a grad transfer and go to Georgetown. And just comparing the two, I fear that we've lost the plot in college basketball, at least from my perspective. Last year, I was super excited to go to Georgetown, and I started the first game of, you know, my Georgetown career, super exciting, and actually the first play of the game I tore my ACL. So there was no, you know, house settlement at that time, and I wasn't getting paid to go to Georgetown. I was just on scholarship. But I think that having that happen to you and losing your kind of your whole identity, you know, I've been playing basketball my whole life. I think that was really, really scary. And then coming back this year, you know, the coaches kind of, you put a price to these, athletes' names, right? Like, with the revenue share, you're basically saying you are worth this amount of money, and because, we haven't seen you play and you've been injured, you're not going to be worth as much as, a 5-star recruit or something like that. So I think that it's sad seeing that now college athletics is all about, money and who can make the most of it and how you can, benefit the most from, getting the most money at the school that you go to. And just in comparing that to my time at Princeton, like, we're all in the same boat there. Like, nobody's getting paid to attend the university, and we're just playing for the love of the game. And I think that that's just there's a really stark difference compared to right now. And it's, I always joke with my underclassmen teammates, and I'm saying, like, oh, I wouldn't want to be in, this is my last year of college basketball. I say I don't want to be in, the new college basketball era, just because I think that we're losing the plot.
And have you seen any of the revenue sharing disparities, over the last year? Or?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that as a Georgetown student athlete, we might not have as much money in revenue share on our women's basketball team than if we're comparing this to, Power 5 schools. And a lot of my teammates have hit the portal. And it's just crazy, the numbers that I'm hearing and, like, all the money that is being thrown in these, 18, 19, 20-year-olds' faces. And it's kind of funny because I joke and I'm like, you're going to come out of college making probably 5 times the amount that I'm going to make, like, in my first, post-grad job. So it's different, and it's kind of to the point where, like, how are these mid-major schools or, Power 4, how are they going to compete with the SECs, the South Carolinas, the Texas of the world? Like, it's just kind of hard. And my little sister actually goes to Princeton right now, and she is kind of just like, there's just such a big difference with the recruiting nowadays too, because you're trying to sell Princeton, but you don't have $100,000 that you're offering to a high schooler now. So it's just, it's just very different than when I was in college, when I was an undergrad.
And do you see some of your friends transferring just because of the money, you feel like, or?
I'm not going to.
Okay, so that's fine.
No, okay. I'm kidding. But I think that's obviously definitely like a very big thing, I think that I obviously have more knowledge, more lived experience because I am a lot older than my teammates because, this was my 6th year of college basketball. So I think that if you asked me 3 years ago, like, are you going to go to this school for $300,000? I'd be like, yeah. So I definitely think that that is probably, very much up there with the reason for transferring.
Sure. And I don't know if you know, do people generally know what each other's numbers are at Georgetown at this point? Or I assume, I don't want to make an assumption, but in many instances, the men's basketball team might be getting paid more than the female basketball players. Is that something?
Yeah, so we're actually, like, not allowed to talk with one another about how much money that we're making and stuff like that. But you obviously know, especially with men's basketball, you look at the men's basketball program and how much money gets poured into Georgetown men's basketball, the history that goes with it too, and it's like night and day with the women's program. It really is sad because even this past year, we had the same exact record, but their men's basketball players, and with the men's side, it's much easier to, like, know how much people are making, but you have, like, people making $1 million to play, college basketball. And we're having the same record as, these people too. So it's kind of just like, I don't know that that is really sustainable because it's like you're recruiting people for $1 million, $500,000, but you're not winning any more than the people that are making much less, so.
And for those of you that are familiar with Title IX, basically it does require that the universities provide the men and women with equal treatment and benefits. So, when you see an athlete who basically says, my experience is radically different than the male basketball counterpart, it usually is unfortunately an indication that there's some Title IX violations there. And to be clear, 93% of the Division I universities are already not in compliance with Title IX, and that's even before we layer in the $20 million payments. And for many of you that may not realize this, there was the past damages settlement, which was $2.6 billion. $2.4 billion went to men, that's 96%. $102 million went to women, that's 4%. $500 million went to the lawyers, just they cut a deal where they paid themselves 5 times more. And then what we're seeing on the revenue sharing side, where the universities for the first time have an opportunity to pay $20 million. Many of the universities are not disclosing it. To date, they're really not required, but of the ones that are, they're following a similar formula to what they did in the past damages payment, which is to pay the football team 75%, men's basketball 15%, women's basketball 5%, and then all other sports 5%. So anybody that's in an Olympic sport or the additional sports, oftentimes we've been speaking with, we have some other athletes down there, but you'll see that many of the other sports outside of football and basketball really are not even recipients of the revenue sharing payments themselves.
Yeah. It's sad because it's like you go your whole college experience trying to convince yourself that you're more than, just a certain identity. You're more than just an athlete. You're more than just, a Princeton women's basketball player. But now it's kind of just becoming, you are this number, and if you don't play like you're this number, the next year, you're not even going to come close to that. So it's kind of, I don't know. That's all I have to say on that, I think.
Okay, well, let's move on to Sophia. Sophia, let me see your, okay, perfect. So Sophia comes from Long Island. So for those of you who don't know Long Island, it is one of the, I call it a hotbed for men's and women's lacrosse historically, where lots of the top Division I players have been recruited all along. And Sophia, as she will describe to you, had the unfortunate situation of having been recruited to a Division I school, having been promised a scholarship, and having that pulled within 2 weeks before her signing her letter of intent. So I will let Sophia explain that better than I just did, but.
Thank you for having me. So my junior year of high school, I verbally committed to play Division I lacrosse at Youngstown State University. Then that summer, they kind of started talking about the house settlement, so they're like, oh, come visit and come play for us, just to be safe, just to make sure if anything happens, but we're most likely not making any cuts, nothing's changing. And then the end of September, beginning of October, I received a call from my coach saying, hey, you're cut, sorry, but this is what I have to do. I was supposed to sign my letter of intent 2 weeks after that date. So I'm in my senior year of high school. I started and I was like, I know where I'm going to college. I know what I'm doing. I don't have to worry about that. And then all of a sudden, my scholarship and my roster spot is pulled, so I have to turn around and figure out, do I still want to play college lacrosse? What am I doing? I have to apply for more colleges now and just figure out what I'm doing. Now I go to the University of South Carolina. I'm a sport and entertainment management major. I ultimately chose not to play. I had other offers, but I decided that academically it made more sense to go to the University of South Carolina.
Yeah, and so talk to us a little bit. Obviously, South Carolina has an amazing women's basketball program, but talk to us about the disparities between the attendance for the men's and women's program.
Yeah, I think that there's a huge disparity. I love that everyone goes to the women's game. It's so cool. They're so fun to go to, but a lot of people don't go to the men's games. I noticed that there's a lot more empty seats, and a lot of people end up leaving before halftime or right after halftime.
But obviously, there is some revenue sharing going down in South Carolina, and I think we have some fan favorites that have extravagant lifestyles. Any insights in terms of the South Carolina campus? Or no, actually, that's with Sydney. I apologize. I apologize. That's Sydney. Actually, I'll jump Sydney. Why don't you jump in? I apologize. I'm jumping to Sydney, but Sydney, go ahead and talk to us.
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, UNC, down at UNC. I know you've got some revenue sharing down there. Any insights in terms of how that's working out?
Yes, so the revenue sharing I'm part of the gymnastics team there, so it is not really prevalent in that sport. I'd kind of say it's more so like the traditional college sports. Everybody's there to compete, to be on the athletic team, and then get their academics done and go off to start their careers. But what I do know is our men's basketball and football team is very popular. University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill has a very sustained, very historic run on the basketball team. They have the Dean Dome and a separate complete facility from the women's. For example, Caleb Wilson there, who's a freshman, he's an outstanding player, but for example, some of the revenue sharing, like people have seen him riding around campus in a Lamborghini. There has been talk from people I know on the football team there at Carolina that their contract or their letter of intent for their scholarship is completely separate from what their revenue is. So they're getting, I've talked to people and they're like, oh, so what's your other contract for gymnastics? And I'm like, I don't have another contract. I have my full ride, and they're getting $20,000 up to $100,000. A member that I actually know, a friend of mine that I know at Indiana University who just won the national championship in football, they just signed for deals for $14,000 a month for just being there, and he did not even play on the team this season. So the revenue sharing is impeccable in different aspects of sports at North Carolina.
And Sydney, did you receive Alston payments prior?
I did not.
Okay, so UNC didn't have Alston payments. And one of the challenges we've seen with Alston payments with female student athletes is that historically they did receive the $5,980 in cash, which is a meaningful amount, and in many of the Power 5 schools, those Alston payments have been eliminated. And essentially what's happening with all of college sports is that for the universities that really want to participate in this injunctive relief revenue sharing future, they need to find $20 million. And even the few universities that do generate money from their athletic programs do not have $20 million sitting around. So it has resulted in the restructuring of a lot of athletic budgets. And so unfortunately, what that means is taking away oftentimes from Olympic sports, women's sports, and it's kind of reallocating, redistributing the money towards the men's football and oftentimes basketball payments. So you see eliminations of teams. Obviously, as Sophia described, she lost her scholarship. One of the things that I have seen personally is that student athletes that have scholarships can be pressured into a transfer portal because the school wants to retain that scholarship money. And I've seen that both on the men's side and the women's side. And in many instances, I am concerned that it's not based on their performance. And in fact, it's unfortunate that I think schools may make it increasingly difficult for some of those kids. So, Sydney, talk to us a little bit about UNC. Obviously, you're a very successful student athlete. And that being said, you personally are not being impacted by the roster limits. And talk to us about what you're seeing in the gymnastics world. Obviously, Olivia Dunn has demonstrated that female athletes are worth $10 million on their own, in case people are concerned about whether women's sports is worth anything. But what do you see in gymnastics right now?
Yeah, so UNC is a developing gymnastics team, but amongst those SEC schools, there are signs of revenue sharing, Olivia Dunn, for example, but more of those things in gymnastics are more you have to personally seek that sort of NIL deals. A majority of Olivia Dunn's salary or numbers that she was getting were from like Nike deals or going to different events and things of that sort. So it's not a signed contract that they're getting. But beyond the gymnastics side at the University of North Carolina, I am participating in the CKSA project as an intern, and Dr. Keith Adams is helping me to navigate that sort of revenue sharing and how I can take certain opportunities to receive NIL and then also honing in on my professional skills outside of athletics.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to move on to Morgan, just because Morgan, I know you're at the end there, and Morgan has a very interesting story. For those of you who don't know, Morgan is an outstanding women's golfer and could make the pro tour, in my opinion, and actually, transferred from Georgetown. She was the Big East Freshman of the Year, and then transferred to Georgia with aspirations of becoming, a professional golfer and really trying to put herself in a situation where she could benefit not only from academics, but really put herself in an athletic situation where maybe she could follow that trajectory. And as you'll learn from Morgan, unfortunately, she's not on that trajectory right now. And I will simply say, of these 7 student athletes we have up here right now, they were all recruited Division I student athletes. 3 of them right now do not have teams, okay? And so oftentimes people talk about, oh, these are isolated incidences. They're not. And every time I hear one of their stories, I can pretty much tell you that it completely overlaps with other student athletes that I've spoken with. So, Morgan, why don't you help us understand your journey and
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you to the Drake Group for giving us the opportunity to share our stories. I feel like it's really important, especially with where sports are today. So, like it was mentioned before, after my freshman year, I decided to enter the transfer portal because I just wanted to pursue a stronger golf program. So I entered the transfer portal and ultimately committed to the University of Georgia on a 4-year full scholarship that could not be reduced based on my athletic performance, physical health, or mental health. And then last spring, when our team first was starting to learn about the House settlement, we were told it would be an investment in non-revenue sports like women's golf. We were told our scholarships were going to increase specifically for women's golf from 6 full rides to 9 full rides because they believed in us. This sounded really positive, especially for players who were not on full scholarship. But by the end of year meetings, so at the end of every school year, you have meetings with your coaches, and every player who was not on at least a tuition, room, and board, so basically everything except cost of attendance, their position on the team was cut. So for my team, this looked like half of our team getting removed, and we had another third of our team graduate. So for me, it looked like returning now my junior year of college with only myself and one other player. And then, like it was mentioned before, with Alston money, so my sophomore year of college, we received Alston money, which was about $3,000 a semester. And then financially speaking, because I feel like this is important as someone who plays a non-revenue sport, with cost of attendance, although that number has increased a little bit, I'm actually earning less money now because Alston money has been removed. But looking back at these roster decisions, I absolutely feel like they were premeditated. And from there, the coaches definitely invested in the players less that they already knew were ultimately going to be cut at the end of the year. And I think overall, it just does not create a positive environment, a positive team environment, an element that is like, we invest in you as players and we want to see your progress and improvement over your time here. And I think that that really is a problem. And then, so starting this year, my entire team, so we had 9 players, we were all aware that the following year we were projected to have 10. So my coaches had over-recruited for the coming year. And that put everyone on the team in kind of a tricky position because we were all just very hyper-aware that there's a very strong possibility that someone on this team is not going to be on this team next year. And I think the problem with that is everyone's living with uncertainty, and you constantly feel like you have to prove yourself and that you deserve to stay even though you've already earned your place, and for many of us earned 4-year contracts or whatever the year till graduation it is for you. And then unfortunately my situation became a little bit more complicated. Over the past year I've been in 2 major incidents. I witnessed a teammate who was struggling with mental health while I was alone with her on the golf course collapse. 911 incident, I was screaming help, help, help on the golf course. And then, unfortunately, this past fall, I was involved in a car accident with a teammate. Both had a real impact on my mental health as well as my athletic performance. Unfortunately, it declined following these 2 incidences. Following this, I sought support and explored the potential of a medical hardship waiver. And with that, I expected guidance from the university, and instead I experienced the exact opposite. I was pressured to transfer. I was treated as a roster spot rather than as a person, and ultimately I was dismissed from the team despite being told it had nothing to do with my athletic performance, my academics, or who I was as a person or as a teammate. And to me, this raises a really important question, because how is that equitable? How can you be removed from a team for simply doing nothing wrong except advocating for yourself? From my perspective, this is where the Title IX concern comes in. When a student athlete raises concerns about their health, safety, or well-being, and the result is loss of opportunity, exclusion, or dismissal, that begins to look a lot like retaliation, which is in conflict with Title IX, not support, which is what you expect when you're struggling, and you go to the people who told you they believe in you, who gave you the opportunity to have a 4-year commitment. And then speaking on it in terms of the house settlement and that kind of environment, the risk of that retaliation, I believe, increases with Title IX due to the house settlement. And this is because the house settlement has shifted how programs think. Athletes are increasingly viewed through the lens of roster efficiency and resource allocation instead of the human beings and athletes we are striving to be, and students as well. I mean, we're there to get a degree too. So what I experienced was a reduced tolerance for athletes who advocate for themselves or who seek help beyond their coaching staff. To me, that's a really concerning part because Title IX is supposed to protect the student athlete, not put them in a more vulnerable situation. So in general, my message is this: if we're going to talk about the future of college athletics, we need to talk about accountability. We need to ensure that student athletes can ask for help, speak up, and prioritize their mental health without risking their position, their scholarship, or their future. And most importantly, we need to hear from the student athletes themselves because that's where real change is going to be made.
Morgan. So I think Morgan's story brings up some really important things too. Retaliation, okay? One of the things we talk about is why aren't student athletes objecting to this or doing something about this? And I unfortunately can tell you every time a student athlete tries to do something, I feel like the student athletes are retaliated against. I've seen, I've had a client who filed an objection letter and 12 hours later was getting drug tested for the first time by the NCAA. I have seen coaches immediately come to players after they have filed an objection letter and ask them why they did that and make misrepresentations that they need to understand why that is. The coach doesn't need to understand why that is. That's between a student athlete and his or her due process rights to object to the settlement because it's impacting him or her directly. I can tell you that the retaliation is occurring not just to women, but to men as well. And I can tell you the mental aspects of a student athlete losing his or her roster spot and identity as a student athlete for the wrong reasons is devastating. And you layer into that a coach who's trying to pressure you to enter a transfer portal to free up money. The mental aspects are real, and I've seen it firsthand. And I think what's really unfortunate is these student athletes have very limited pathways in terms of not only seeking help for themselves, but most of them, at least in the legal system, don't even have an opportunity at this point to do anything. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time today to share their stories. I did want to leave a few minutes if anybody had any questions. I'm sure the athletes would be more than happy to answer them. Yes. Oh wait, we're going to get you a microphone, sorry. It's coming. Right behind you. There you go. Yep.
My name is Robert Clayton. I'm a former scholar athlete, as I refer to myself, at Harvard University in track and field. And the one question that I think I always want to ask scholar athletes today is, would you have selected to go to that university or stay at that university if the athletic experience did not work out? Because there's two decisions. This is a university I want to get a degree from, regardless of athletics, and this is a university that I want to have a successful athletics experience. And I think what's missing from the discussion is this is a university that I would have loved to attend even if the athletic experience didn't work out. I found that to be opposite of how you all communicated. So any of you all can address that so we can better understand how you balance the academic experience and the decision to go to the university versus the athletic experience.
So I think Gracelyn actually would be an excellent example of somebody who really wanted to go to the university.
I actually visited Liberty my junior year and walked on campus and was like I didn't meet the team, I didn't tell the coach I was going, I toured by myself and I walked on campus and I was like, this is it, like I'm going here. And because I'd put 6 years of early mornings, late nights, fueling, like figuring out how to like fuel my body, figuring out how to stay healthy, figuring out how to cross train, figuring out how to not get injured. Because I put all of that in, I really wanted to run, and I felt like running was like a catalyst for not only like my faith, but also for like it was making me better in the classroom because I'd learned how to manage my time in athletics. That transfers, so much of it transfers directly to academics. So I feel like for me, like it's always gone hand in hand. Like my academics have balanced my athletics, and my athletics have balanced my academics. And yeah, so I wanted to go to Liberty regardless, but the team and the culture that I'm a part of increases that experience tenfold. And even if I was at Liberty without a team, it would still be a great experience, but it is 10 times better because I'm on a team and because I have mentorship and girls that surround me and make me better every single day.
Yeah, I was just going to add that having experienced two different, environments, I can 100% say that, at Princeton, if I weren't playing basketball, I would have loved the environment as just, a school and as, a non-athlete. And I think something that's special about Princeton, I always joke that at Princeton, I was a student athlete, and at Georgetown, I was an athlete student, just because with like the different constraints, I mean, in Ivy League school, you don't have summer session. You're limited strictly throughout the week about your hours, for practice, weights, all of that stuff. And if you wanted to quit the basketball team at Princeton, you would still be able to attend the school because you're getting in on your own. But if you wanted to quit the basketball team at Georgetown, you would lose your scholarship and, have to pay for school yourself if you wanted to continue. And, there's summer session there, there's just extended training periods. So I think that it's, in this day and age, it's kind of rare to, find somebody that would, go to the school and like not play the sport. But I can definitely say that that was not the case for me at Princeton.
And I think, Morgan, maybe you want to jump in here. Obviously, you were, Sophia was faced with a situation where, her school that she wanted to go to wasn't there, and the first thing you had to reassess was the academics. I mean, maybe talk to us. I know you described that, but yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
No. So anyway, I'll answer for you. But basically, in Sophia's case, she was going to Youngston, and then that opportunity was lost. And as a result of that, she really had to think about where she wanted to go academically, because the only other schools that she might possibly be able to play sports at such a late notice were schools that she felt like academically were not strong enough for her. So she has had to take the rerouted route of focusing on academics without the athletics. And I think in Morgan's case, I think if you want to become a professional golfer, I don't think that's unreasonable to want to move from Georgetown down to Georgia. I don't want to speak on your behalf, Morgan, but would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love my time at Georgetown. I think the really difficult thing with going to a school in a city and playing golf is the golf course was 45 minutes away. Sorry. I mean, I absolutely love my time at Georgetown. I think the tough thing with wanting to be a golfer and being in a city is the golf course was like 45 minutes away, and you also can't have your own car on campus, and golf is a very individual sport. So it was hard to be able to practice on our own when we're sharing a team van. I think, like, if you're asking me candidly, I probably, if I was deciding out of high school and not playing a sport, I probably would have gone to a school like Georgetown if I had the opportunity and stayed 4 years. I absolutely chose a school like Georgia because I wanted to pursue my golf at the highest level, and I was trying to build a career for myself later on down the line.
Okay. So I think we have limited time, and I want to be respectful to everybody else that will be speaking in the future, but the student athletes will be here, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to address any questions or speak to you afterwards. But thank you, everybody. Thank you to the Drake Group.